Hello and welcome to another video with me, your host, Lave. In today's video, we are going to be talking about lambdas. We're going to break them down and see just what kind of problem they solve. By the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of what they are, why they exist, and how you can use them in your code. So, make sure you've got a full cup of coffee and let's dive on in. Often, you would like to pass some logical behavior as a variable. So before lambdas, we had to write a new class or an anonymous inner class just to describe a piece of behavior. And this would often lead to a lot of boilerplate code for a simple action. Now, Java 8 introduced lambdas, a concise, functional style code by representing anonymous functions. So if you were to picture having a TV and remote, the remote has some buttons such as power, volume, up and down, channel up and down, etc. Um, each of those buttons doesn't actually contain a TV object, but instead they just contain a piece of logical instruction that should get executed when pressed. A lambda is a short, inline way to define a piece of behavior that can be passed around. It represents an implementation of a method, which comes from a functional interface. A functional interface is an interface that has exactly one method. And this describes a behavior, but not what the actual behavior is. Before the lambda was introduced, we would write some verbose implementation, which could be an entire anonymous class for just one method. And that method might only be used one time. So as you can see, this is what that would look like. So now, what would that look like as a lambda? How did lambda simplify this? Well, because the method execute is inside of a functional interface, you don't need to provide the name, method name, because Java knows that it's a functional interface and it only has one method in it. So we can just provide the empty parentheses. And we no longer need all of the braces. And all we have to do is point to what we want to happen. So we'll add an arrow. And now this got rid of a lot of boilerplate. You can also have parameters with your functional interface. For example, we can take in a message to be printed to the console. And what the longhand would look to that is something like this. You can see just how much more simple it is with lambdas. But now, lambdas can take it a step further. What if you wanted to return a value from this lambda? So instead, we might have a calculator, which may just simply add two things together. And we want to return what that addition is. So the lambda equivalent now becomes simply we're passing in a and b, and we want to add them together. So for this one, we can just come down. We can just come down beneath it, add in a simple result, and we'll just simply say, we'll add these two numbers together, and then we're going to note the result of that. And if we were to run it, you see that we get 32 as the result. So let's look a little deeper into this. Lambdas are not objects themselves, but rather a way to implement a functional interface without the need of a named class. So you'll often see lambdas used in things like streams, collections, callbacks, and even event handling. For example, if we were to have a list of names that we wanted to print to the console, um, that functionality might look a little bit like this. Now, what if we wanted to perform some sorting on this? Before Java 8, we would have to write a little bit of a verbose way of doing this. So let's take a look and see what that looked like back in the day. So you see here we have an array list that is our names, and then we would call a collectors.sort, passing in the names, and then we would make a new anonymous inner class just to handle this. So now that we use lambdas, we can again shorten this up and get rid of the names, take in just the two parameters that we have, and then we want to point to the logic that is supposed to happen, and of course we can clean up the rest of that. Now, you may notice that IntelliJ is kind of hollering at me that things are not quite right. That is because this can be shortened even more. So all of this can be shortened down to something like string compare to. And in fact, down here can be shorthanded to just IO print line. You may have noticed there's a little bit of funky magic going on. This double colon. What is that wizardry? The double colon is called a method reference. A method reference is a shorthand way to refer to an existing method so that it can be used where a lambda is expected. The method references exist to make your code more readable, more expressive, and less redundant. If a lambda message or a lambda method does nothing more than simply call an existing method with the exact same parameters, Java allows you to use a reference to that method directly instead of rewriting it. This avoids repeating parameter names and method calls that add absolutely no meaning. When would you want to use a lambda? Well, if your behavior is small or the implementation is only used once, you may want to consider a lambda. You may want to avoid a lambda if you have long or complex logic that needs to be reused. All right, so just to recap what we covered, you should know that lambdas exist to be able to easily pass around behavior, not just data, and that lambdas are a short, inline implementation of a functional interface, and finally, that they reduce a lot of boilerplate code. So hopefully you understand the syntax, where parentheses represent the method and the parameters that it may need, as well as that the arrow points to the behavior. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something. Hit that like button if you did. And if you'd like to learn more, remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to be notified of when I post new videos or when I go live. If you know a friend that might find this useful, share it with them as it helps us reach more developers. And as always, keep your curiosity open, your skills sharp, and that coffee cup full. I'll catch you in the next one.